amazing. Look at that. Why do these people, why does nobody support margins? What happens if I don't use custom extents? Okay. I don't know if anybody's going to show up in time to vote, but if you do, I'll do what we vote on. What is it called? Overview. You're here typing. Do you not hear me? No, it's got the quote in the wrong place. I just figure people should type it in chat and I'll see it because there's only going to be like 7 votes total. So crafting trees means you use A and B to make C, and then you use C and D to make E, and you do etc. It's like skill trees and research trees. It's a crafting tree. Do I need to actually explain that, or are you just joking? Can I use a different font for some of it? No, I can't. All right, we're joking. Good. Is there anything else I could be working on? Let's look at the to-do. That's connected to the stuff that I've been doing because that I'm like kind of in the mental space to do it. That's why I decided to do the stream at all. I'm just like kind of in the midst of doing it. So so we fix this, we fix that, fix that, fix that. Fix that. I did write that down somewhere. All right, so that's all done. Mesh cache, whatever. Factorial ideas. So there's this stuff. We could refine. I could support multiple ores properly. I think that's pretty low priority. Right, for what we'll do to start with, if we were to do crafting stuff, is things will just take any ore and not care. And that way I don't have to worry about that stuff. And also keep in mind, I don't have Photoshop installed, so some of these things I can't do good like graphics for. So that's one of the problems with the crafting stuff, is I can't make stuff very well. Let's see. Another thing I could do. Refine machine placement UI. So you could have ghost objects that you drop. That's a thing that we'll need someday. Do need player inventory and such, but that's just not very high priority. Player crafting, being able to craft stuff directly in your own thing. I don't even remember what this is. I think I said that last time. X's I don't think I want to do, which means this is technically done. This is done badly. This is basically done. I haven't done the polygonal one yet. That's why that's there. But I don't know if I want to do polygonal. Like in Minecraft, blocks do not turn into sprites when you drop them. I think they turn into still solid objects that just bob and are smaller. And the question is, should they do that in this, or should they turn into sprites? Because when they turn into sprites, they look really dumb from like when you're looking up at them. All right, so Steady State never voted. So there were 2 votes for animated machines, 2 votes for the crafting tree. Don't forget, if you vote multiple times and I'm not paying attention, you might have them count multiple times. Okay, somebody voted on the straw poll, but was that somebody who already voted in chat? Yeah, that would suit him probably. All right, we're still tied. 2 crafting trees and 2 animated machines. I mean, I'll just pick one of the 2, or I could coin flip, or I could pretend to coin flip and pick one without showing you the coin. Steady State. Max Perman. Either of you got a real vote? All right, here's another one for crafting tree. So we're three crafting trees. Why is this chat options? Please, chat options can go away. There it is. Okay. No, yeah, you can't vote for that. You can't vote for the procedural crafting algorithm of crafting tree. It's not on the options. Okay, and another vote for crafting. So crafting has won out overwhelmingly. All right, which is the thing I've been putting off, and partly it's because I do need placeholder art for it. So we're going to have to make do with something else for the placeholder art. Or I can MS Paint it. So what do we need to do? So we need a machine. We need a type of machine. So we need a type of block. I believe that's where we start this. So we need a... So here's the thing. In Factorio, you have like an assembly machine, and then you configure what thing you want it to make, I believe. But that's like a little bit more UI. It might be nice if the assembly machines are sort of customized to particular tasks, especially if they aren't just blocks that stuff happens magically inside. If I start making them be animated machines, even though they don't really do the right thing. Like, it's super convenient, though, to be able to just put down an assembly machine and reconfigure it later and not be tied to what it was doing. But there is something to be said for, like, certainly on a realism front, you need totally different machinery to assemble an X than to assemble a Y when they're different things. So, and I don't know, Factorio might have a hierarchy of assembly machines. I've never looked at the details. So I think to start with, we'll hard-code it into the machine what it assembles. And maybe even you could have a an arc of the game where the early machines can only build one thing, and then the later machines, you can build a machine that's a generic builder machine once you have like more smart technology. So animated machines, it just means, not that this matters because we've decided, but animated machines just means animating. Currently, machines are a single block, and I want to turn them into things that animate, but they aren't going to behave any different. And currently, there's no behaviors to them. There's the drill or whatever, but visually, they'll look like they're doing something. That's the intent. I mean, I could go full bore and have them actually try to like maneuver their inputs and turn them into their outputs in detail, but I think they'll just be like box E things, but with, you know, gears sticking out that are spinning or something. I don't know. I haven't really thought it through. So when we get to that, we'll figure out what it should be. But just because my experience, that's all because my experience with the picker is that the pickers look amazing to see that stuff moving. And so I want more things moving. So that's what the animated machines is about. Whereas fast and slow belts is actually about the simulation and needs to actually have the two interact correctly. Okay, so you know, for example, at some point we need to build a furnace. A furnace is going to turn ore into like refined ore or whatever. But so let's go ahead and start with what's the thing that once you have refined stuff, we have to actually figure out what our crafting tree is, or a little bit of a fake crafting tree. It doesn't have to be the final one, but so, you know, I talked about some possibilities here. So, so initial crafting tree. So furnace, and you take coal as fuel, and you take iron. So this will be fuel, coal, and input iron and output steel, right? Or actually, do you refine iron? Do you start with like iron ore and turn it into ore? I guess you do. So that's what this is. And then how do you turn iron into steel? Oh my gosh, I have to do research. I mean, I don't have to for this step. We could make up a bogus one and get it working. And maybe that's the better thing to do. So it's a furnace. It is in a furnace. Okay, and then where does pig iron come from? There's no link for pig iron. Oh, well, here's older traditions making from bar iron. Pig iron was turned into bar iron. Okay, so iron bars. Where does pig iron come from, though? We don't have to be exact, obviously. Yeah, so like somebody's describing the more detailed process and intermediate progress of smelting iron ore. So let's just go straight from pig iron or iron ore to iron bars. And then whether it's the same furnace or not, I don't know. And take input iron bar. And we could add another input to simulate that kind of stuff, but I don't really want to have you making flux or getting some other thing or whatever. So we can just do it this way. So, you know, this could be a different thing, or it could be an explicit, like it could be hard-coded to be specific things. Like in Minecraft, you just have a furnace, and it always turns something into something. And I'm kind of okay with that idea. Like having the furnaces depend on what their inputs are. However, if you make them fix things, if this is a steel furnace, then pickers can automatically know the only input they're supposed to pick up is iron bars. If they don't know what their recipe is, then they can't know. So that, again, you could do that two ways. You could have furnaces that you explicitly configure, three ways. You can have furnaces you explicitly configure. You could have iron furnace and steel furnace as separate things. Or you could have a generic furnace, and it's up to you to make sure you route stuff so that you never have this stuff happen. So let's make the furnace generic, and then make the other stuff not generic, just as a starting point. But I like the idea of having this intermediate step, because then you can also make things out of iron, right? So you have your lower tech stuff that you make out of iron. Like I think Factorio makes iron gears. I don't know if they also make anything else, right? But so if we were just doing what they did, you'd have iron gears. And steel plate is actually what I think they, as one of the steps in Factorio, at least, it's steel plate. So I don't know, what does it take to get from an iron bar to an iron gear? You probably still have to heat it to shape it, right? So you'll need fuel, but I don't know what you'd call that. Iron manufacturing. Cast iron tends to be brittle, so you wouldn't use cast iron for gears. Or maybe you would. Yep, okay. Gearbox cases, but not gears. Made by remelting pig iron. Okay, so with a bunch of other stuff, but whatever. Close enough. And like I said, like we could just name everything random stuff and just make a dummy tree instead of trying to get this right. But I think it feels better to start to try to get something. Although keep in mind there won't be any graphics that really match. So iron bar plus gear mold. So this is some kind of, what I want to know is what the noun for the machine you do the process in. Yeah, furnaces. So yeah, it's still just a furnace kind of thing. So this is more like a refining furnace. Yeah, I don't know. I need to abstract, and I keep trying to be realistic, and I need to stop being realistic and just be this. And so it's just a matter of coming up with names for what these things are. Which is why if you just make an assembly machine or whatever that can take any input and make any output, that's a lot simpler because you don't have to come up with a name for everything. All right, here we go. It's a gear maker. And this is a steel maker. There we go. Okay, and then what could we do if we've got iron gears? What do we need to make a conveyor belt? That's a good starting point, because that's the actual objects we have in the world. So what do you need to make a conveyor belt, given what my conveyor belts look like? Like they have an iron frame and then they have the belt. What is the belt made out of? How would you ever manufacture the belt? It's like rubber, or I guess it could be made of plates. It could actually be made of nested plates or whatever, overlapping plates. Iron would be kind of heavy, wouldn't it? I guess that's why you have slow belts, is because they're just all made out of iron. Like it's before you've learned to refine the steel, right? So you make, so for now, maybe this is, these are not the real names for things, but for now. So you take an iron gear and you take an iron bar and you output conveyor belt, and we hand wave away the surface. Or it could be 2x iron gear or whatever. The rubber comes out of magic. I mean, obviously, we could have this whole thing where you have oil that you refine to petroleum that you make rubber with, but the problem is you want to be able to make conveyor belts right at the beginning of the game. It wants to be the very first thing that you're going to be making is conveyor belts, right? And so you want them to have as few necessary inputs as possible. And so making them be able to be made entirely out of iron, even though that makes no sense, is probably good for gameplay. So you could do something like this. I don't know what the right recipe is, but something like that. We'll just call them makers. And we're immediately seeing how many of the unique things there would be for these, which seems crazy, which is why it seems like they really ought to be combined into a smaller number of machines. Just got to tap a tree to get the rubber. Yeah. Even just having two, like, the thing is, it just feels to me like even having two different ingredients from two raw ingredients to start the thing is a little too much. Again, I think it's a game and you can hand wave that. And I assume Factorio does also. I don't know what it takes to make a conveyor belt in Factorio. And let's see, then you have the ramps. You have to be able to make the ramps separately. Or should we be able to automatic? Maybe the ramps should be able to be automatic. The UI is going to be really gross if it's supposed to be able to magically start going up. So I think you either would have to have a different UI control to express the three-dimensionality, or you need to explicitly place ramps, and then those ramps could clearly be manufactured separately. So I think manufacturing ramps is separate. But they'll take as endpoint. Let's see, they're going up. They're doing more work. Okay, and then this is also, I think, what Factorio does is that you don't have to power your conveyor belts, because that would, again, be too much busy work setting up the initial power. So if they're going up, they need more power in the abstract, and we'll symbolize that by making them use an extra gear. And if they're going down, they actually don't need that, but whatever. We'll just have it use the same ramp for both up and down. Yeah, people in chat are still proposing that rubber should be a resource that you gather, which, as I said, it's not unreasonable. It's just I think I want you to be able to make conveyors straight out. You have to get some coal, get some more iron, and you can immediately make conveyor belts. If you had to add a third thing to that, that just feels gross to me. My intuition. So we can already see we've got a whole ton of makers, and having them all be separate things seems like a terrible idea. So we'll have to revisit that. But to start with, we need to make the furnace, and then we'll a gear maker. Maybe anything that takes similar ingredients can be combined. Like these two could be the same, and you configure them somehow. Although once you have to configure them, just letting them configure from anything is kind of cooler. Like you need a UI that lets you choose between a few things. You might as well have a UI that lets you choose between everything you can make, probably, assuming you can organize it well. Basic belt is 1x iron gear and 1x iron plate. Fast belt is 5x gear plus basic belt plus, I'm sure, other stuff. But yeah. Yeah, I'm going to do something where, like, my fast belts require aluminum or something. I don't know, some idea of a lightweight metal, and some I think I'm only going to do 2 speeds of belt, and the second speed of belts will come very late in the game, so you'll have to have built the miniaturized kind of technology, like little computer type things or whatever, before you can start going to the high speed belts. At that point, you would slowly go back through your factory and rebuild everything, replace everything with the faster stuff. But the faster stuff would be just way more expensive to make. And the point is you can do that repeatedly, right? Like Factorio has 3 belt speeds that build on each other. And I don't know how much more expensive they are. But the one that I do know is Factory Idle, which is a sort of meant to be like a cookie clicker kind of game. It's a browser game that's 2D, Factorio-esque thing. And it has this just totally insane tree because it's a little cookie clicker like, so they wanted it to take forever. where as you go up these hierarchies, you don't get to speed up the belts for a long time, but as you go up these hierarchies, they just get exponentially more expensive in a totally nutty way that I don't like cookie clicker type games really, and that was the part of it that was trying to stay true to the cookie clickers and made it too annoying for me. Yeah, Factorio uses a generic maker that takes a recipe. Yeah, so which is what I figured. What do you think is a good system project to work on to break into the game industry? I have no idea what it takes to get into the game industry these days. I've worked professionally in the game industry in the 90s, which is nothing like the modern game industry. I've been an indie in the 2000s when it was very hard to be an indie and I wasn't particularly successful. And then I've been working on the edge of the game industry as a third-party middleware developer since. So I don't really know what it takes to get into the game industry proper. In general, I'd recommend just going indie and not trying to get into the game industry proper. But that's not a guaranteed job. Like, being an indie often involves doing something else and being an indie on the side, either doing contract work or doing a real job. So that's not a panacea either. If you actually want to do games as a job for a living, be prepared to work on stuff that isn't as fun as what you would get to do on your own. And I don't know what it takes to get into the door these days. No idea. All right, so we want to make the furnace, and let's make let's call conveyors belts, just to be a shorter word. And let's say, so I'm going to hard code this and then we'll make it data driven further down the road. But it's not so much to be moddable is the intent, but it just should be trivial to make these things. But to start with, I'm just going to hard code it while we figure out how it works. All right, well, let's just hard code these things, not worry about the whole reusing them and that kind of problem yet. So, so we have a BT furnace and we'll make an iron gear maker, right? Like, who knows? So those are our first two things. And we need to be able to create them. We don't really need the splitter or the balancer right now. So furnace, iron gear maker. Okay. Now, we need artwork for them. Where does that stuff get initialized? Is that in voxel render or mesh builder? Yeah, it's in mesh builder. Certainly if you want it to be moddable, you don't want to have to create a new type here for every single thing. So this may be a really bad strategy. Like maybe even if it's not internally done with assembly versus, yeah, except it has to be. As long as they're being, until we add the animated machine rendering, they're going to be being rendered by STB voxel render. So they have to go through this system. There's really no way to compare that different. All right, so then where do we set the block type textures? We do it here. So we set the block type texture for furnace and for iron gear maker. Okay, now I want to change change these to work from all sides instead of having a single side that's the primary. So these are going to become 23, 24, 23, 24. I need to change those last two. And that was, what was it? 7? 17. These become 17. And east becomes up. So their up face is what their old side face was. And then they have different textures all the way around. Okay, so 23 and 24. It's in this file. It's in which file loads the textures? Main? Yeah, main. So we need different textures for, so let's just grab a random texture here. So this one is 8, 9, 10, 11. So we use 11 and we'll use 10. Just to have them have something to start with. 10 and 11. Now, what else do I have to do to make that work? I don't know. Can we just place one and see what happens? That looks like, oh, yeah, it has the fallback renderer. That's in object render? No, it's in logistics. So logistics rendering, machine, case BT, furnace, case BT, iron gear maker. For ants, okay, so those are our two new machines. Obviously, right? Do you know which one's which? I don't. I think I have them backwards. I want the furnace to be the brick one. I think I do them backwards. Furnace was the first one I put down, and it was the fuzzy one. So let's reverse that. No, it's mesh builder. So let's reverse the textures. Okay. All right, there we go. Now we have to make them work. So how do we make them work? We go into logistics. We go to machine tick machine. What's it called? Machines tick. Darn it. All right, so how do the pickers decide what they're allowed to pick? I don't remember what the current state of the pickers is. I think they pick if it's available. They don't have any smarts currently. Here's the machine tick. Okay, so pickers. Yeah, they just check that there's some item there. They currently have no smarts at all. All right, but here's the thing I was looking for, the machines. So here we go. Case, BT, furnace. All right. What we want, the picker needs to know whether it's allowed to insert into the machine. How does it decide that? If picker input item is not 0, so that's the state. Output to a machine. Here we go. We're pushing it into the output slot. So we need to add a new function here, which is move from picker to machine, picker, machine. And some of the smarts need to go in here. And this is actually not going to be good enough. We'll actually need to make the picker not pick it up, but this is our work in progress version of this. Move from picker 2. Machine, picker, machine. Picker info. Okay, so I didn't change what it is at all. So now, move from picker to machine. Currently, the only machine is the OR eater, so this was just implementing what the OR eater does, and it just moved it into the output slot of the OR eaters because we didn't have input slots. So, what we have to do is decode the inputs for the machine, and the machines, by design, do not actually store a type because I didn't want to take up the memory of storing exact objects, so you can't store you have 1 gear and 2 plates or whatever. Instead, the machine is configured, the machine info type, right, there's an MI type, right, which is this BT whatever currently, I think. Yeah, type. It's supposed to be implied by that. So, and then if you have loaded an input into your input buffers, those are stored in flags. So what we need to do is say int input types. And so each one can have, let's say, up to 4 types. I don't remember what the original intent was. Input so unpack input flags into input types, 1 input slot free for the machine. Then if the picker item is in one of those slots, I have a variable for that. Let me find what the variable is. I think I have a, maybe I don't. There's supposed to be one. Anyone want me to explain what I'm doing? I have not been very clear about what I'm doing here. Define num max unique inputs for. So at this point, we then loop through the input types. And we say if pi item equals input types of I, then these input types, it's just going to be it's just going to be 1 per machine. So where's our machines? We'll start it there. So slot 50 will be nothing because that's BT machines. OR drill takes no input. OR eater can eat the first 4 kinds of objects. I don't know. Or okay, right. So yeah, the items actually need to be a different type thing. We can't use the block types for the items. So we'll come back to that at some point. That's the OR eater. The furnace. What does the furnace take as input? It takes, where was that? Furnace takes as input iron ore, iron bar, and coal. it's going to take item type. We probably want to handle fuels differently, but for now we'll handle it the same way. Iron ore, and it takes fuel, coal. Right. So we need item types. IT empty, IT coal, IT iron ore, IT iron gear, IT steel plate, IT iron belt. This is called a conveyor belt. IT conveyor belt ramp, etc. Let's put all the ores first. Iron ore. What other ores? We were talking about stone is in Factorio and in Minecraft, but I don't know that we really want stone. We really need stone as a recipe item. What is stone used in Factorio for? Like stone tools is not really very interesting from this. You can't really make machines from stone very well. VC6 is 1998. So it's pre-XP. When did XP come out? You had 95, 98, Windows 2000, and then XP. So maybe XP was 2003 or something. Walls. Yeah, you could use it to make walls and paving stones and stuff, but I don't think that's something you want to build in the factory. So I don't think we need stone as input. Oh, copper. That was the other one we had proposed. And then copper you can make zinc out of. I mean, iron and copper you can make zinc out of or something. No, you can make bronze out of it. What is zinc? Zinc is something. I don't remember what zinc is. And of course, bronze for machinery is probably terrible, but the Bronze Age, hey, whatever. So let's leave room for more ores. But we probably won't ever have more ores. Although this is exactly the Factorio ores or whatever. We don't need slots for liquids because liquids won't go on conveyor belts. These are really conveyor belt items, but they're also probably inventory items and other. Those will probably be the generic system of item naming for those things. Okay, so this should be using those. So the ore eater can eat. I just want there 1, 2, 3, 4, just to have something. Okay, so coal and iron ore and 0, 0. We don't have to spot the ore. 0, 0. So that's what a furnace takes. Coal and iron ore. And then what did we say where we're going to refine it to? Iron bars. So I guess this might as well be data driven. We might as well say what the output is too. Can you have more than one output? We can't currently, but let's go ahead and support it. Yeah, because you should definitely be able to have processes. One of the things I was thinking might be interesting was to have waste products out of all these things, slag or whatever, that you then have to dispose of. So it's in that whole anti-environmental thing. You'll be strip mining and you'll be dumping crap all over the place. Might be kind of amusing. So the ore drill outputs depending on what it's drilling. So I don't know how to express that in this system. Ore eater doesn't output. Furnace outputs iron bar. Iron gear maker outputs iron gear. And this takes as input IT coal, IT iron bar, IT iron ore. No, wait, the gear doesn't take that. The gear is just iron bars. And then theoretically we would have, let's not require the furnacing for the assembling the thing. It takes an iron bar and it takes iron bars and iron gears. These need a count field that's separate. At the moment, everything is just going to require 1 to start with, so we don't worry about that. All right, so unpack the input flags. The input types are input types. Oh, well. Input type table of machine type minus BT machines. And unpack input flags. And so what we'll do with the input flags is it's 6 bits, I believe. Oh, I'm looking at Bower. Sorry, machine. Input flag 6 bits. So one thing is, if we did do the thing I was saying about expanding everything to 16 bytes, then these could all just be bytes and wouldn't need this kind of thing. But we'll stick with the being super compact. So what we're doing is we're going to store 2 bits for the first slot, 2 bits for the second slot, 1 bit and 1 bit. So for how many have been loaded into the input. So unpack input flags takes input slot free 4, doesn't need the input types. Now further down the road, it will actually take, the flag packing will be different for each machine. So you could have a machine that takes 1 each of 6 different things. You could have a machine that requires, you could use 4 bits for a slot, and that would mean it could require 15 of something, but it then can only use, you only get 6 bits to store whatever the packing is, but it could be unique to each machine. That's what the road I'm currently headed for. Trying to keep it all still super bit packed. Obviously, if you can just store 4 bytes, then you could just have up to 255 of the things. Anyway, this is representing an input buffer in the machine. It collects the things it needs until it has all of them and starts operating. So input flags and 3. This is not how many free, it's how many used. Because that will be way clearer. I was going to make it be free because then I would know what the max are. I wouldn't need to know what the max are. I could just check whether it's free. So this is going to have to be maybe I should do that way anyway. For now, we'll require 1 of each type just to be simple. So if it has an input free, then we add 1 input to machine in that slot. And we do this. And we return. I guess we break. And we return, and that's implicit. Okay. So this is going to count the slots that are free. So slot free of 1 equals mi input flags 2 and 3. And why is it 6 bits? Because that's how many bits were free when I got done with what I was doing, filling everything else, and it brought it to a multiple of 4 bytes. All right, so now we've unpacked it, and we don't have to do it this way. We could probably data drive it and just do shifts, but this is for clarity, simplicity and clarity. It's going to run every time a picker operates, so probably should be sped up if it can be sped up. But all right, so now we know how many slots are free. So then we say slot used. All right, we changed this back to slot free. These are slot used. Gosh. John's non-prefix function calls in JAI. The infix ones. Well, I mean, he mentioned, I'm on record as saying, I mean, he didn't go into it in any detail, so it wasn't clear, but I'm on record as saying that math is a tiny part of computation, and putting stuff in your language like operator overlaying that's really only good for math. Like operator overlaying in C++, a lot of advice is don't use operator overlaying, it's too confusing, except for math, where it matches math notation, so it's convenient. But if math is not really that important a thing, I don't think it's worth adding something to the language. It's very important to us in like game programming, 3D game programming, we do a lot of math. But in general, in computation, it's not that important. I mean, we do have expression, syntax, which is copied from arithmetic. But look at this. I'm doing non-math things. I'm doing shifts and masks. So we'll do this. So I don't think going down that path is really that great an idea. I mean, obviously, if you have the system and it's there and it works, you can use it. But it does mean that when you're writing performance critical code, you're hiding what's going on when you see an operator. I'm again opposed to function overloading, and operator overloading is even more hidden. Function overloading is where you have two functions with the same name, but they behave differently depending on the parameters. Usually when you do function overloading, function name overloading, you're doing the same kind of thing, but with slightly different inputs. Like, oh, maybe you have one version of the function that takes a vector and one that takes 3 bare things, and they do the exact same thing under the hood. And that's okay. Like, that doesn't cause you any performance surprises or behavior surprises. But if you have the same named function doing 2 radically different things depending on what types are passed to it, then when you see that function call, it can be unclear what it does. It also makes it harder to grep the code and understand what the code does when you see that call and you grep to find it and you find 2 things and you're like, which one of these is it calling? So when you do operator overloading, as soon as you make the operators do different things, matrix multiply still doing multiplication. And 1 by 1 matrix multiply is the same as multiplication, I'm pretty sure, a scalar multiplication. But the performance behavior of that asterisk operation is radically different. And I'm not sure that getting notation to exactly match math notation, like mathematicians love to be able to express those things very concisely. And it does let you, when you transfer an equation into your code, it lets you more obviously see whether the equation matches your code. But I really have no problem with writing, vec add a vec, well, okay, a vec mul of that. I don't mind that. I don't think that's, I don't think that's significantly worse than this, despite being much longer, because it's explicit the way everything else in computing is, except for math. And scalar math gets a pass because in the non-operator overloading case, I give this a pass. If I were writing a new language, I wouldn't get rid of this because A, we're used to it, and B, it's very predictable what its performance is doing. If you didn't care about performance, you were writing a non-performance oriented language, then maybe I would be okay with operator overloading. But for what JAI's purpose is, it doesn't seem like, it's not what I would have done. But, I'm not saying it's wrong, it's just not what I would do. And I'm sure it's going to come with a standard caveat. I mean, he said that he's going down the path of the C, programmers can shoot themselves in the foot if they want to. We give them the loaded gun and tell them to be careful. And it's worked fine for C, but there are places where it's not the greatest thing. And like he's, hey, range checking your arrays always, which C doesn't do, is actually nice. And so in the same way, I think unbridled license for people to shoot themselves in the foot, if you give them operator overloading, they will shoot themselves in the foot. Experience has shown it, so why bother? But even if they didn't, I don't think math is a good enough reason. And so the infix thing is not operator overloading, but it's like there's no good application for that syntactic sugar, really, I don't think. Writing a process B, or whatever the syntax, it doesn't save typing, doesn't save almost anything over that, right? Like, I don't see any value to that except in math. And in fact, I'd argue this is clear because the parentheses are forced now. So if you had, he mentioned that he doesn't know what exactly to do about precedence, but those are both shorter, and because they have parentheses in them, are explicit about the precedence. So I don't see much value to that at all, personally. And I needed to give all that background to get to the infix thing because it's of a piece of that. It has that same argument that it's only useful for math, and I don't think it's worth putting in things into programming that's only useful for math. I think that overemphasizes math. All right, so I'm unpacked my input flags into slot-free flags. And I want to call that compute-free input instead. And then we need to say add one input machine info mi in which slot. So if I equals 0, mi input flags plus equals 1 if I equals 1. And if you ever called this and there wasn't a free slot, it would overflow and be totally wrong. And I'm not going to worry about that case. All right, so there we go. Now, in theory, moving the picker to the machine is handled in a generic way for all machines. However, if the picker has a type, the wrong type of thing, it's just going to get stuck now. So we're going to need to add a function that the picker doesn't bother picking up if it's the wrong type. Okay, so now, what do we want the machine to actually do? BT furnace. Well, if the timer went to 0, we produce our output. And our output is an IT iron bar. Voila. Then, if we're not running and our input flags equals one plus 1 or 4, so if we have an input in slot 1 and an input in slot 2, because we need both coal and ore. And we'll have to handle, like I said, we'll handle the coal differently, so it uses it over multiple times. There's, I think, a variable available for this. So if that happens, then we want to start processing, which we do by setting our timer. And we need to set it to the right length. And this can be table driven eventually. We'll start seeing this is exactly the same pattern for every one of these, so we'll table drive it. And then we consume our input. Voila. And we're done. That's it. Case BT iron gear maker. If went to 0, x output equals IT iron gear, x timer equals 0, and x input flags equals, what does the iron gear take as input? Iron ore? Iron bars. Does it just take one iron bar? Yeah, I think so. So this is the same test. Input flags equals 0, exit timer equals 7. Break. Make the iron gear slower. While we're here, let's go ahead and make another one. BT iron conveyor belt maker. Belt maker. F went to 0. X output equals IT conveyor belt. The input flags, for now, we still can only require one of each because the picker is not set up to do anything else yet. We consume everything, but we one of each. We want to include that one as well. And do that. And we need to add that to where that. And I don't have the geometry and stuff set up for it. We'll do that in a little bit. All right. Now I want to change pickers so that they didn't care about the orientation of the machine that they're attached to. So picker knows what machine it's going to. It does have an input and output. It has an output ID and an input ID. Okay. So we want to know where the input IDs are computed from. Output ID will be the better one to find. Okay. That's if it's a belt. Okay, get machine ID. I thought it looked at the direction. Maybe it doesn't look at the direction? We're just passing in a coordinate. We don't check the direction. I guess we don't check the direction. I thought we did. Nobody ever uses mi arrow dir. Okay, it's just being used to render it then. What else do I have to do? We have to make sure we pick up the right things. I have to try compile. Missing parenthesis. And all right, so we're spontaneously generating randomly the first two types of ore. We can't put a splitter in here. Okay, let's do it down here. Wow, I really need a faster way to place stuff. I should have just built something from scratch that was on flat terrain instead of doing this, trying to use something I'd already built. Maybe I'll just go do that. All right, here's a flat world. It just takes a while to build the stuff. Oops. Dang it. All right. Now we put some drills, some stuff to drill into, then we put some drills. And then we put some those things. All right, save that. Now we put, just so that we have some placeholders, I know we put a furnace, which was 7. And, all right, we need to take from 2 sources. If we don't want to get jammed, well, that still won't work. So yeah, we'll just have to get lucky to start with. And then we need an output. And it's probably already jammed with the wrong inputs. No, there's nothing on it. Okay, so why is that not trying to pick up? Not sure why that picker isn't trying to pick anything. And it seems to have output something other than an iron bar there. It seems to have output one of its inputs. The iron bar should render as black, a black blob, I believe. IDs can be negative. No, IDs can't be negative. I don't know which thing you were seeing that made it look like that. Actually, we'll do that. We do still want that here. And then we're going to put down a gear maker, which is going to take as inputs one of these, and one of these, and it's going to output to here. All right. Save the map. Let's break in here and see what happens. Why do they hit the 1 to 0? Oh, yeah. We'll break in here. Okay, they're already outputting stuff despite never hitting those cases. So the pickers are outputting something else. I don't know what the pickers are outputting here. So the picker logic is wrong. And we know that the pickers don't know to pick the right things up as well anyway. But so the pickers, if their source is a machine. Oh yeah, I haven't implemented pick move from machine to picker yet. So if picker's output is a belt, so picker's input is a machine. It takes from the machine's output. That should be correct, actually. Nothing should end up in the MI outputs. Do I do it? Do I destroy all my existing stuff so that I can break in here only on these? None of these cases get hit, but somehow the picker is outputting from the machine. MI arrow output. Move from picker to machine. Oh, that's dead. It's supposed to be adding inputs now, not setting outputs. So if MI type equals DT or eater, then we put it into the output. That's a special case for that. All right, so now probably just will do nothing because I have a bug, or because they're never getting the right set of inputs. They should each pick up one red. They should pick up one red and green, and that should get them to that other state. Where's the move from picker to machine? Compute free input. Let's breakpoint here. Again, which IDs? What IDs are you talking about? There's multiple IDs in this system. Okay, there we go. We hit that. So we got an input. It was item 2. In slot 1, input slot 1, and MI was D3C. Now we got a different one, getting slot 0. Why can I not stop? Which key does it think is held down? Okay. And now it never picked up anything else? That doesn't make any sense. D3C. D34. I've seen it pick up 2 items. Why does it only fire once? Once for each machine. It doesn't clear the item and change the state if it can't put it in the machine. It's supposed to just sit there. So I don't understand how this code doesn't get run twice. Well, it gets run once for each machine, but it doesn't get run twice for each machine. All right, D3C finds it in that slot. D3C again. PI item is 2. Input types is 2. Input slot free is 0. So it picked up the same type again. But it's not supposed to get rid of that then. This fails. It doesn't delete the thing, so it doesn't change states. So it should just stay in the same state with the object still attached to it. And should just keep trying to add it every tick and always fail, because this is not supposed to actually get run this way. Yeah, it's just every tick. It's trying and failing. But why can't I see it? It should still be in the thing. Ah. It's in the thing, but it's not drawn in the right place. Not sure why that is. When we draw a picker, if it's carrying an item, we put the item somewhere. Oh, we just follow an independent path. We just compute an independent path. And so the path it's doing ends up too far. Not actually attached to the thing. Oh, right, because I wanted to show it getting consumed. So I wanted to animate in, even though that didn't quite match the motion of the thing. All right, so there you go. Now it's still holding it because it picked up the wrong ones. Okay, so we got to prevent it from picking up the wrong one. As expected. For machine, picker, info, PI, machine, info, MI, int, type. So we just repeat this whole loop. We don't need this. Return true, return false. Bull. Now, allow picker for machine. So if so we're going to pick up from a belt or pick up from a machine. So if PI arrow . output is belt is false. Okay, we actually have to do this inside. Okay, so right here is where we know the type. So then we say if allow picker for machine of picker machine, and we don't actually need the picker. B items slot dot type. If it's not allowed, go to skip picker. Skip picker. And then we do this code whether it's the output is a belt or not. That's why I had to do this thing, because it's, if the output is a belt, we want one test. If the output is a belt, we don't need a test. So I can do this with an and. If the output is belt or allow picker for machine. I guess that's better. I was concerned that there was going to be a more complicated test eventually, but I don't think there is. And then if the input is a machine, for now we'll just always do it. We'll assume it's always legit. But if you were going from machine to machine, it might not be legit. And so I need to add it. To do forbid picking up a thing that our output doesn't allow. Okay. That makes sense. Do I need to do anything else? Is that it? Maybe that's it. I don't have the machine. How do I get the machine info? I have to do this. Oh, it still needs to be this far, didn't it? I think I still want to do the skip picker version then. If the output is a machine, then we have to load up the machine. And then if it's not allowed for that machine, then don't pick it up. Now, I was saying that I might not want pickers to do this automatically. This might want to be the more advanced type of picker. The initial type of picker does just blindly pick everything up. But I'll write this code now because so in normal use, you wouldn't mix stuff on your belts. So we'll write this thing for now this way and handle this case. And if it turns out that we do want pickers to be done by default, we just disable this for some pickers. This uses some coordinates that we don't have. Oh, it uses the face, no, but of the picker, which is correct. And this still takes a PI that it doesn't need. Oh, but that would actually be, that would handle the case where it's a dumb picker that picks things up even though it shouldn't. Let's just put that in that code. All right, so let's see what it does now. Picks up 1 green, 2 greens. It still picked up 2 greens. All right, so the second time it's allowed. Oh no, I can't use this one. All right. first time in here, type is 2. D3C, then we run again, and the second thing it gets, type is 2. Okay, so this one should reject. My type device 2, it doesn't reject it. But it allows it in the 3rd slot. But this input types, wait. Let's call this item. I think that was the only place that was using the wrong type. The wrong variable. All right, here we go. It's going to work this time. Pick up 1 green, wait for a red, pick up 1 red. There it goes. And now this machine fires. And we hit an assert because we tried to render something out of range. Yay! All right. So let's make an iron bar be white. Should just make a little table for this, and make a gear be magenta. So this needs to actually be. So actually, let's go ahead and make the table. Quote, item type color. All right, so first one is nothing. Then we have coal, so we'll make coal be black. Then we have the iron, so make that be gray. And then we have the copper. And then we have 4 dummy ores, if I remember correctly. That's in logistics right now. 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we have the iron bar, which will make white. And then we have the iron gear, which will make dimmer, a brighter gray than the ore. And then what's after that? Steel plate, and then conveyor belt. Okay. All right. And then we have to actually use it. Yeah, we'll just have that for now. Sure. It's 4305. Warning, disable 4305. Okay. So coal, or iron ore, iron bar, iron gear. All right. Now we need to add the conveyor belt manufacturer, which we added to this conveyor belt maker. Then we need to add to this. And don't know what that'll be. And then see if the conveyor belt side as the top. Just, well, let's just do it on this one just to see. And then, oh, this didn't get edited. So those were just wrong. I wonder what, I didn't even notice what they, oh, they were just all the same. Furnace. And here, maker. Conveyor belt maker. And we need a key so that we can put those down. We need to start expanding the abilities of this thing so that I don't have to always change to add new keys for this. Let's start losing the ramps. All right. So now we can place one in the world. We already implemented it in the tables for the logistics. Input type table right here. It takes an iron bar and an iron gear. We didn't implement its output type. IT conveyor belt. They all are going to just take one of each for now. I think that works. Seems reasonable. Conveyor belt maker takes a while. All right, let's see if I just added the conveyor belt maker successfully. So we need to take a gear. So a bar. Oops. Oh. The output ID was invalid. Output ID was garbage. Is that a code that we have that I forgot to test for? Yes. And PI error output ID does not equal target. None. If you don't have a target, you cannot try to pick anything up because you don't know where it would go. And you should only run this code if you actually have an item. Oh, but you do because you're in state 2. All right, let's try again. I have to rebuild that stuff and save. Make sure I remember to save it. Zero, 1. That's not the top. 1. Oh, it's 2. There we go. Oh, still have that bug of rendering it wrong. That's okay. So then we need Why is that not picking it up? I don't know why that's not picking it up. And it needs fuel. Oh no, this one doesn't use fuel. That's right. This is getting backed up, so we need to put an ore eater at the end. But we don't have that on our queue of things. So we just want fewer things, so it takes longer to back up. And let's save that. And then we need an output. And we need a picker. I'm not sure which way it needs to be. I don't remember if that way is the picker or that way is, I think that way. So does this need to be turned around? Yeah, okay. So now this should manufacture a magenta thing. And it'll take a while because I've set it to a longer tick. Or it may just be broken. Did I put this one wrong? Logistics long tick belt, conveyor belt. All right, let's delete the conveyor belt maker and make a new one. Oops. Should be able to see whether both things pick up or not. Both things picked up, but neither of these things hit. Oh wait, I said it needs 1, 4, and 16. What was the third type? There isn't a third type because it doesn't take coal. So that's waiting for an input it's never going to get. All right, so let's save that map. You only need the first 2 inputs, and the renderer, which is at the end of this, needs that case, so it stops drawing the goofy thing. Is it going to do it? Is it going to do it? No, it's not going to do it. Why are these stopped here? Okay, yeah, I want to change the animation position of these back now. Why did this stop here? That was weird. Why is this not picking anything up? Ah, because it was pointing backwards. That's why. Dang it. There it goes. Yay, we made a conveyor belt. Woohoo. It's making them kind of fast. So there we go. Woohoo. So now we'll stop for the night, but then the next step now is to generalize this to make it not all hard-coded, since they're all doing the same basic thing, to put that into data-driven logic. Maybe put it in a text file even. I guess actually the next thing is to make it take 2 gears per thing. Do I still have the splitter? I think I took the splitter off my... Yeah, I took the splitter off, so I can't put a splitter in. Oh, they're all glitching. No, okay, these 2 aren't glitching, but that one's glitching. That's not glitching, actually. That's correct. Now, why did it stop making them? Oh, because this got backed up. So I'm going to... One of the things I'll need to do soon so that we can make better test machines is have 2 types of ore that are generated separately so I can get them on different sides of the belt or whatever. So then if we look at the list of things that we were proposing to work on. So other splitter variants would allow smarter routing. Fast and slow belts would not be very interesting in this situation. This is crafting trees. And then AMA machines then would have this, this, and this. Draw as something a little different and something with some internal motion to it. And maybe they'd be too high or stick slightly outside their block. I'm not sure about that. Like, do I want you to be able to put them packed right next to each other? I think I do want you to be able to pack them right next to each other. And so I don't want them to stick outside of their box. But so you can see why animated machines would make a big difference in what we have right now. Because right now, having them just be blocks doesn't look that interesting. But there you go. The very beginnings of a crafting tree. Did I remember to flag that started the stream? I think I did. Yeah, okay. I just don't remember to do it here. I always do these at the end once it's already done, which is not when it's supposed to be done. All right, so that's it. Thanks for watching as always. And I'll stop the stream and I can still answer questions if anyone has questions. So see ya.